All right, hey students, we're going to be reading the middle of the chapter until the end. This is the man with red eyes, and this is chapter 7. And we left off where he's having them just repeat things monotonously over and over and over to put them in a trance, to hypnotize them into this strange planet, Kamazots, and then to the thing that runs Kamazots, which is it. And we don't know very much about it yet. So I'm in the middle of page 136, where we left off. And Meg was screaming, "Father! Father!" The scream, half involuntary, jerked her mind back out of darkness. The words of the multiplication table seemed to break up into laughter. "Splendid, splendid! You have passed your preliminary tests with flying colors." "You didn't think we were as easy as all that, falling for that old stuff, did you?" Charles Wallace demanded. "I hope not. I most sincerely hope not. But after all, you're very young and impressionable. And the younger the better, my little man. The younger the better. Timichka!" Meg looked up at the fiery eyes, at the light pulsing above them, and then away. "Дай чуть-чуть водички." "Спасибо." She tried looking at the mouth, at the thin, almost colorless lips. This was more possible even though she had to look obliquely, so that she was not sure exactly what the face really looked like, whether it was young or old, cruel or kind, human or alien. "If you please," she said, trying to sound calm and brave, "the only reason we're here is because we think our father is here. Can you tell us where to find him?" "Ah, your father." There seemed to be a great chortling of delight. "Ah, yes, your father. It is not can I, you know, young lady, but will I." "Will you, then?" "That depends on a number of things." "Why do you want your father?" "Well, didn't you ever have a father yourself?" Meg demanded. "You don't want him for a reason. You want him because he's your father." "Ah, but he hasn't really been acting much like a father lately, has he? Abandoning his wife and 4 little children to go off galvanating, off on wild adventures of his own?" "He was working for the government. He'd never have left us otherwise. And we want to see him. Please. Right now." "My, but the little miss is impatient." "Patience! Patience, young lady." Meg did not tell the man on the chair that patience was not one of her virtues. "And by the way, my children," he continued, "you don't need to vocalize verbally with me. You know, I can understand you quite as well as you can understand me." Charles Wallace put his hands on his hips defiantly. "The spoken word is one of the triumphs of man," he proclaimed, "and I intend to continue using it, particularly with people I don't trust." But his voice was shaking. Charles Wallace, who even as an infant had seldom cried, was near tears. "And you don't trust me? What reason have you given us to trust you?" "What cause have I given you to distrust?" The thin lips curled slightly. Suddenly Charles Wallace darted forward and hit the man as hard as he could, which was fairly hard, as he had had a good deal of coaching from the twins. "Charles!" Meg screamed, and the men in dark smocks moved smoothly with swiftness to Charles. The man in the chair casually raised one finger, and the men dropped back. "Hold it," Calvin whispered, and together he and Meg darted forward and grabbed Charles Wallace, pulling him back from the platform. The man gave a wince, and the thought of his voice was a little breathless, as though Charles Wallace's punch had succeeded in winding him. "May I ask why you did that?" "Because you aren't you," Charles Wallace said. "I'm not sure what you are, but you," he pointed to the man on the chair, "aren't what's talking to us. I'm sorry if I hurt you. I didn't think you were real. I thought perhaps you were a robot, because I don't feel anything coming directly from you. I'm not sure where it's coming from, but it's coming through you. But it isn't you. Pretty smart, aren't you? He thought, and Meg had an uncomfortable feeling that she detected a snarl. It's not that I'm smart, Charles Wallace said, and again Meg could feel the palm of his hand sweating inside of hers. Try to find out who I am, then, the thought probed. I've been trying, Charles Wallace said, his voice high and troubled. Look into my eyes. Look deep within them, and I will tell you. Charles Wallace looked quickly at Meg and Calvin and then said, as though to himself, I have to, and focused his clear blue eyes on the red ones of the man in the chair. What's Charles's flaw? Pride. He doesn't know what he's up against. Meg looked not at the man but at her brother, and after a moment it seemed that his eyes were no longer focusing. The pupils grew smaller and smaller as though he were looking into an intensely bright light, until they seemed to close entirely, until his eyes were nothing but an opaque blue. He slipped his hands out of Meg's and Calvin's and started walking slowly toward the man on the chair. No! Meg screamed. No! But Charles Wallace continued his slow walk forward, and she knew that he had not heard her. Okay, Charles is hypnotized. He's been hypnotized. He's no longer Charles. No! She screamed again and ran after him, and with her inefficient flying tackle she'd landed on him. She was so much larger than he that he fell sprawling, hitting his head on a sharp crack against the marble floor. She knelt by him, sobbing, and after a moment of lying there, as though he had been knocked out by the blow, he opened his eyes, shook his head, and sat up. Slowly, the pupils of his eyes dilated until they were back to normal, and the blood came back to his white cheeks. The man on the chair spoke directly into Meg's mind, and now there was a distinct menace to the words. I am not pleased, he said. I could verily lose patience with you, and for that, for your information, young lady, would not be good for your father. If you have the slightest desire to see your father again, you had better cooperate. Meg reacted as she sometimes reacted to Mr. Jenkins at school. She scowled down at the ground in sullen fury. It might help if you gave us something to eat, she complained. We're starved. And if you're going to be horrible to us, you might as well give us full stomachs first. Again, the thoughts coming at her broke into laughter. Isn't she the funny girl, though? It's lucky for you that you amuse me, my dear, or I shouldn't be so easy on you. The boys I find not nearly so diverting. Well, now tell me, young lady, if I feed you, will you stop interfering with me? No, Meg said. Starvation does work wonders, of course, the man told her. I hate to use such primitive methods on you, but of course you realize that you force them on me. I wouldn't eat your old food anyhow. Meg was still all turned up and angry as though she were in Mr. Jenkins' office. I wouldn't trust it. Of course our food, being synthetic, is not superior to your messes of beans and bacon and so forth, but I assure you that it's far more nourishing, and though it has no taste of its own, a slight conditioning is all that is necessary to give you the illusion that you're eating a roast turkey dinner. If I ate now, I'd throw up anyhow, Meg said. Still holding Meg's and Calvin's hand, Charles Wallace stepped forward. Okay, what next? He asked the man on the chair. We've had enough of these preliminaries. Let's get on with it. Aye, Charles. Charles was proud. He's in over his head. That's exactly what we're doing, the man said, until your sister interfered by practically giving you a brain concussion. Shall we try again? No, Meg cried. "No, Charles, please! Let me do it, or Calvin!" But it is only the little boy whose neurological system is complex enough. If you tried to conduct the necessary neurons, your brains would explode. And Charles's wouldn't? I think not. But there's a possibility. There's always a possibility. Then he mustn't do it. I think you'll have to grant him the right to make his own decisions. But Meg, with the dogged tenacity that has so often caused her trouble, continued. "You mean Calvin and I can't know who you really are?" "Oh, no, I didn't say that. You can't know it in the same way, nor is it as important to me to have you know. Ah, here we are." From somewhere in the shadows appeared 4 men in dark smocks carrying a table. It was covered with a white cloth, like the tables used by room service in hotels, and held a metal hot box containing something that smelled delicious, something that smelled like a turkey dinner. There's something phony in the whole setup, Meg thought. There's definitely something rotten in the state of Camazotz. That comes from Hamlet, Shakespeare. Again, the thought seemed to break into laughter. Of course, it doesn't really smell, but isn't it as good as though it really did? "Well, I don't smell anything," Charles Wallace said. "I know, young man. Think how much you're missing. This will all taste to you as though you were eating sand, but I suggest that you force it down. I would rather not have your decisions come from the weakness of an empty stomach." The table was set in front of them, and the dark-smocked men heaped their plates with turkey and dressing and mashed potatoes and gravy and little green peas and big yellow blobs of butter melting in them and cranberries and sweet potatoes topped with gooey browned marshmallows and olives and celery and rosebud radishes and... Wow, guys, I think it's time for lunch. Meg felt her stomach rumbling loudly. The saliva came to her mouth. "Oh, Jiminy," Calvin mumbled. And chairs appeared, and the 4 men who had provided the feast slid back into the shadows. Charles Wallace freed his hands from Meg and Calvin and plunked himself down in one of the chairs. "Come on," he said. "If it's poisoned, it's poisoned. But I don't think it is." Calvin sat down. Meg continued to stand indecisively. Calvin took a bite, chewed it, swallowed. He looked at Meg. "If this isn't real, it's the best imitation you'll ever get." Charles Wallace took a bite, made a face, and spit out his mouthful. "It's unfair," he shouted at the man. "Go on, little fellow, eat!" Meg sighed and said, "Well, I don't think we should eat this stuff, but if you're going to, I'd better too." And she took a mouthful. "It tastes all right. Try some of mine, Charles." She held out a forkful of turkey. Charles Wallace took it, made another face, but managed to swallow. "Still tastes like sand," he said. He looked at the man. "Why?" "Well, you know perfectly well why. You've shut your mind entirely to me. The other 2 can't. I can get in through the chinks. Not all the way in, but enough to give them a turkey dinner. You see, I'm really just a kind, jolly old gentleman." "Ha!" Charles Wallace said, and the man lifted his lips into a smile, and the smile was the most horrible thing Meg had ever seen. "Why don't you trust me, Charles? Why don't you trust me enough to come in and find out what I am? I am peace and utter rest. I am freedom from all responsibility. To come into me is the last difficult decision that you'll ever make." "If I come in, can I get out again?" Charles Wallace asked. "But of course, if you want to. But I don't think you will want to. If I come, not to stay, you understand, but just to find out about you, will you tell me where Father is?" "Yes, and that is a promise. And I don't make promises lightly. Can I speak to Meg and Calvin alone, without your listening in?" "No." Listen, he said to Meg and Calvin, I have to find out what he really is. You know that. I'm going to try to hold back. I'm going to try to keep part of myself out. You mustn't stop me this time, Meg. But you won't be able to, Charles. He's stronger than you are, and you know that. I have to try. But Mrs. Whatsit warned you. I have to try. For father, Meg, please, I want to know my father. For a moment his lips trembled. Then he was back in control. But it isn't only father, Meg. You know that now. It's the black thing. We have to do what Mrs. Witch sent us to do. Calvin, Meg begged, but Calvin shook his head. He's right, Meg, and we'll be with him no matter what happens. But what's going to happen? Meg cried. Charles Wallace looked up at the man. Okay, he said, let's go. Now the red eyes and the light above seemed to bore into Charles, and again the pupils of the little boy's eyes contracted. When the final point of black was lost in blue, he turned away from the red eyes, looked at Meg, and smiled sweetly. But the smile was not Charles Wallace's smile. Come on, Meg, eat this delicious food that has been prepared for us, he said. Meg snatched Charles Wallace's plate and threw it on the floor, so that the dinner splashed about in the plates into fragments. No, she cried, her voice rising shrilly. No! From shadows came one of the dark-smocked men and put another plate in front of Charles Wallace, and he began to eat eagerly. What's wrong, Meg? Charles Wallace asked. Why are you being so belligerent and uncooperative? The voice was Charles Wallace's voice, but yet it was different, too, somehow flattened out, and almost as a voice might have sounded on a two-dimensional planet. Temechka di Suda! Meg grabbed wildly at Calvin, shrieking, That isn't Charles! Charles is gone! Temi di Suda! So Charles, because of his pride, he gave in to the man with red eyes. Meg doesn't know what to think because she doesn't know what's going to happen. And so Charles has given in, and now we have to see if the man with the red eyes is going to keep his promise and show them where Father is. So that's the end of the chapter. Thank you guys for listening.